Hello all, this is a repair of an iPhone 7 Plus and I will be replacing the battery and charging port on this phone. Everything I got and all the tools. The first thing that you want to do is remove the two screws at the charging port so that we can remove the screen to get access to the internal components. I'm using a suction cup after those two screws are out just to gently lift the screen up at the bottom where the home button is, and when it's up a little bit, just using your finger or a plastic clip, you can slide it in there and then the screen will come loose, and just wiggling it at the end you can pull it and it folds open like a book to the right. So just be careful of the LCD screens. There's this metal little bracket that holds on the power cable and also the connections to the LCD. So first you'll remove those screws and making sure that you keep those screws in the same order. I like to put my screws on the device that I remove. Removing the LCD connector there, and at the very top there's also another connector that we need to remove. There are 3 screws that you need to remove, and then using some tweezers I'm just taking that off, and then when you have access to those ribbon cables you can just unclip them, and that is the screen removed. With the screen removed, we can now take off the power supply, the battery, and we're going to put the charger port back on. So this is the connector that goes to the bottom charging port, and I'm putting on my replacement charging port to verify that my port is working. So I'm just putting the part there and plugging it in, and you should get about 800 milliamps of current if it's charging, and it is. So I know it's that my charging part is okay and that I can replace it. So remove the SIM card and then remove the top brackets at the top, and there are a couple screws. Just remove all those screws. Again, you need to organize your screws in the same way. What I do is just put them in the same sort of location that I removed it. So if there are 3 screws, 1 to the right and 3 to the left, or what have you, just put them in the same location on a piece of paper, and you can also label them in segments, so each section. So after removing all those screws, we'll be able to take off this device here, and sometimes it's hard to take the screws off, so you can use some tweezers. There's also a little screw on the side, so watch out for that, and then you can remove that one, and then using some tweezers we can remove the speaker here. Underneath that there are also a couple other screws that hold on the printed circuit board, and we need to remove this printed circuit board, the control board, because the ribbon cable is actually underneath it. So unfortunately we have to do all this work just to get underneath this board. So removing all those screws. And these kind of screws that hold on the circuit board are just like a flat screwdriver. It works. And then also remove any kind of cables that are connected to the logic board as well. Now we're just working on the right. There's 2 screws, one at the top, 2. So just taking those off. And then remove the ribbon cables. So I'm just removing that one there. And there's 2 more as well that we need to just clip, just using a plastic tool just to pry it up gently. Just be careful not to damage anything there. And underneath this little flex cable, there's also a little screw that you need to remove so that we can get at the circuit board. A couple more screws holding down the main board. And there are also some antenna cables that you need to remove. They're a little bit tricky to remove, but just pry them up gently and they will come off. With that removed, now we can remove the main board there, just making sure that the top cables are out of the way, and you can remove the logic board. There are other components on the charging cable as well, so we'll be removing all the visual screws. You can just remove them, just make sure you remember where things go again. You can be labeling that. So there's screws to the right, and I again put them into the general location where I removed them, so I remember where they go back. Now we can remove the taptic engine. It just has 3 screws, and also it has a cable, so just don't remove it yet until we get all the screws off. I'm also removing the screws at the bottom charging port because we need to remove them as well. And the bottom speaker right here that has 2 screws. Just using some tweezers we can remove that speaker there. And underneath there you can see the taptic ribbon cable that we can remove, and then that will free up the taptic engine that we can take that away now. There are 2 hidden screws at the very bottom at the charging port, so just tilting the phone up, you can remove those as well. There's one last screw there that I didn't notice, but I got that. And then you can gently take this up. Just be careful, there is an antenna cable that you can just pry out and it will come loose there. With all that, we can remove the charging port, the lightning cables here. Just taking those off. There's a little bit of glue, but it comes off fairly easy. And at the very bottom there are some speakers there that we need to unclip on the left and right. And there we go, we have the charging port taken off. In this one I also replaced the battery as well. You can just take out the little stickers at the bottom, and then you can pry the battery off. Okay, there we go. The whole phone is pretty much taken all apart. Now what we have to do is get the replacement charging cable and putting it on. You'll notice that there are some white lines on the plastic casing, so make sure everything lines up. That's really important, putting back the speakers. And there's also these little white dots for the alignment. Make sure that you can see them through the cable, the holes as well. After you have that, you can just start putting back everything the same way that we took them off. So I'm just doing the reverse process here and putting everything back together. Here I have the logic board back on, putting on the new battery, and I'll be connecting the screen. And then you just want to turn on the phone to make sure that everything's working. So there you can see the Apple logo, it boots up, and then I will connect the power and verify that it is charging. So you can see it is charging there, and at the right hand corner you can also see there the little charge symbol. So we know that this repair was success there. If this video was helpful, please like it and subscribe.